Record.
Okay, Uwe, go ahead, please.
Okay, hello everybody. So I'm just trying to share the screen, and so give me a second. The PowerPoint presentation pops up. Now you should see the first entry screen of a PowerPoint presentation. Hope you do so. And the topic where we would like to spend some thoughts on is a mass creation and assignment of so-called XStep objects to the XStep applications like routings, master recipes, or manufacturing orders. Manufacturing orders as the term for production orders and process orders. So perhaps starting, what could be business needs for master for creating XSteps in a mass way? And during the last, I think, 2 years, more and more potential customers that want to use execution steps say, okay, perhaps I started with browser-based PI sheet or electronic work instructions for a couple of materials, but I would to extend the usage of it. And this has a consequence that you need to at least maintain XStep data for those routings or master recipes that formerly don't had any XSteps assigned to. And the idea that some customers and also some partners got was, okay, I would like to have this in an automated way. This means I know the master data, it means the routings and the master recipes, that I would like to extend with XStep data, and I also know the XStep data that I would like to assign to. And the problems that you have in general is that the XStep editor, the way how XSteps are maintained, hasn't foreseen or hasn't implemented any functionality that allows master data maintenance. So if you create execution steps in the applications, you call the XStep editor and you do the building of the execution step, the XStep tree, step by step, with the user input, and also the XStep objects are then created. But this isn't really comfortable if you have to maintain a lot of data. The prerequisites for such a way is that you know what you would like to model with XSteps. So you, as an example, you know that your PI sheet or your electronic work instructions requires the input of a digital signature. And this has the consequence that the corresponding XStep tree at least has to contain one XStep or a reference to a standard execution step, an SXS, that got the content for providing a digital signature input. So you know the features and functions you would like to have in the browser-based PI sheets or electronic work instructions, and in most ways, so those customers we had contact with, already XStep data or standard XSteps exist that cover the required functionality. And here also the recommendation, ideally you use the standard XSteps because you could easily define them in the XStep repository and reuse it for a lot of applications, independent from the application content itself. So what's also quite important as a prerequisite is that you know the application context. And here I would like also to spend a few more words for those who are not that familiar with, let's say, the internals of execution steps. First of all, the system needs, let's say, at least a hint to which application a distinct XStep tree belongs to. And here, the top node of an XStep tree is the XStep root node. So you will see this in a picture in a couple of seconds here. So This is the XStep root node. If you push this button, create an XStep tree, you get only this one. So SAP is quite different from nature. So we have trees where the roots are on top, not down at the bottom. But this XStep tree root node, it carries the context to which routing it belongs to. And the so-called root context, here is the symbol for it. You also get this root context automatically if you press this button. It's assigned by the system, and here you see also at least the routing number and routing alternative. So PLNR and PLAL is this one. So it's generated. This object. That is also if you would not create any of those XStep objects and assign a control recipe destination and save this, then you would only get here this root node with the context. So this is quite important to have the root context here, because otherwise you have an XStep root node on the database that has no linkage to the application where it was maintained or where it belongs to. So in the root context, clearly the unique identification is the routing type, LNTY, routing group, and the routing alternative. But of course, if you are in the XStep editor and you create a root node, then this context node and the context information is also created. And if you save the data, then the context information and the root node ID is also stored in the so-called context table of the XStep applications. So the next one, which is quite a little bit harder to understand, if we, let's say, go beyond the hierarchy, you see this is in so-called XStep. This ice cube is an execution step that can also carry control recipe destinations or other objects. And here we just assigned a so-called SXS reference node. This is the ice cube with a flag on it. And this SXS reference node is nothing else than a placeholder. It contains only a link to a standard XStep that was maintained in the XStep repository and released, so we can use it and can reference it. So, and you can assign an SXS reference node as well as XStep nodes to a context of an operation or a phase. Here in our case, we are in the routing. I would like that this standard XStep reference node is assigned to the operation 10 of the main sequence. So if you assign standard XSteps and XStep nodes in master recipes, you won't get this sequence information because master recipes don't have alternative or parallel sequences. They always have the sequence 0, and it's not displayed, but it's stored in the routing tables. So you can just ignore it if you are in a master recipe environment. But this means that if you, let's say, have a parameter, you say, okay, I want this parameter to be automatically evaluated with the short text of the operation where it's assigned to, then the system will output the short text of the operation 10. So the context that you assign to is quite important, can be important for the evaluation symbols of an XStep or a standard XStep reference node. Most of you use generation scopes, so generate an XStep for all operations or phases, or custom generation scopes, so you don't assign an operation or phase context to it, but if an operation or phase context is assigned to it, this overrules the generation. What's important if we are in the routing environment, the step context consists also of the fields that are key fields in the PLPO database table that stores operation phase data. This is also the planning type, the planning group, and also planning node information. So you might recognize you don't have this planning alternative. But here there's another routing table that also stores this information. This is specific context for routings. In similar way, if we talk about orders, I will show this later on, we have different root contexts, because here you don't have a routing type, routing number, or routing alternative. You have the order number, And also you have here, let's say, the similar data for the operation or 10 or phase 20 that's shown in the operation list of the order that where you want to assign the XStep to. So quite some basics. Most of you might know this, or should know this. Okay. And here are some of the thoughts, the information that we talk about SAP standard. You normally maintain the XSteps in the so-called XStep editor. You won't realize that it's an own framework because the idea was also to embed it. You just click on the Ice Cube button in the application that implemented the XStep framework, and then you can maintain the execution steps. And also this is quite the prerequisite if you want to create XStep trees and XStep tree content. And also what I said before, there was no idea to, or let's say no, in the first round, not foreseen to provide batch mode creation or creation of execution step objects via background jobs. Yeah. So if you want to let's say create XSteps to support the scenarios that I described, so do a mass maintenance, mass assignment, then you have to do this outside of the XStep editor. There is one scenario where we triggered the creation of an XStep tree by calling a function module from a browser-based PI sheet. And if I got it right, we also had a session about this. This is a so-called rework scenario we showed on the Adaptive Manufacturing Summit, I think in 2008 in the US. And so this function module contains also a lot of information how to create the XStep trees for production orders and process orders. If we do so if we create an XStep object or XStep objects outside of the foreseen maintenance application maintenance functionality, then there are some things that you should be aware of, or that you should be remembered. So if you manipulate the execution step outside of the XStep editor, the first bad thing is if you do this via report, via an own function module, normally you don't have any access to the application context. So for execution steps, this means if I maintain an XStep with the XStep editor and when I'm changing a master recipe, then normally all the buffer tables of that contain master recipe content, application contents, are filled with values, and I can also access the information. You won't recognize this while you maintain the execution steps, but also the information that you, if you want to assign a context, that the system then shows up all the operations and phases that are valid for the master recipe. This is, let's say, the communication between the XStep framework and also the application itself. So if we are outside of the application and create the XStep objects by calling the appropriate class methods, then you don't have this application context access. This means empty buffer tables. So you might call function modules that provide you with the buffer with the values that you require. And what is also quite important as far as you call the application like a master recipe or the routing in change mode, and some execution steps, some authority checks are executed that check that only those people or those let's say master data maintenance folks can access the data that have the proper authorization. And if you do this outside of the application, then you won't have these checks also. And could be if it, that the database tables of the application that normally are locked if you are in a change mode aren't locked. So if this is also something you have to consider if you do such a mass creation in parallel, then you have to be aware of that you can get logging conflicts. And also the XStep editor itself, it provides some features and functions that aren't available from scratch outside of the XStep maintenance environment and might have to be programmed. In the worst case could be that the XStep framework doesn't provide a public method or let's say a function, normally not a function module, that allows you to use this application feature. But as we can see later on, most of the things, or at least that you require for building such XStep objects, are available with using the public class methods that we published. Okay, another general hint. Whenever possible, so use those class methods and interface methods that are available, and don't try. So you can first for routings. Here is the hint to the class that implements the XStep environment, and here you can see also a lot of the logic that is used in the routings master recipe environment. And also for the manufacturing orders, we have a similar implementation class. Here package COCR. We're also calling the editor, creating the objects, saving the objects is also described, and you get also a first impression, perhaps some hints how you can cope with the problems that you might get if you create XStep objects outside of the maintenance environment. Also, general hint, as I said before, implement authority checks to prevent misuse or abuse of your functionality. And also, if we mostly will focus on the XStep part, but if you, let's say, fill in your master data with uploading any data files, and you don't have, then you should probably check if the routing or the master recipe or the order that you want to assign to the way you want to assign the XStep tree really exists. And you can also, if you want to add, let's say, standard XSteps as references, then you should also execute an existence check to prevent that you get inconsistent data. And what's also quite good, if you do any activity that's, let's say, outside of the standard way, try to log your activity. So prepare application logs. There is package where we provided some static class methods that you can use to create an application log and also log your messages and see the application log later on. I can show this also at a later point in time. Here's the class describe. And also might be that you have a testing period or testing phase, and perhaps you don't feel that sure that anything works. Then you should also think how you can at least revert your changes. And if we talk about you created a new XStep tree, then there are some methods. There were some methods in the interfaces that allow you to also delete XStep trees with the help of the standard functionality. So this is also one basic recommendation. And also, even if you can remove there's a child nodes from the XStep tree, there are also methods that do this. It might be more comfortable or better to avoid inconsistencies by removing the complete XStep tree that you created first, so you don't get into trouble that some objects that you don't want to have on the database later on remain on the database. And also something is that we also saw in quite too many custom implementations is that especially the catching exceptions or also the error handling isn't done properly. So this the worst case that then can happen is that you get inconsistent data. Perhaps data isn't also updated on the database, or it's only partially updated, and you afterwards you don't have any clue what happens. And So this, I said, at least the messaging is complementary to logging your activities. But this is, let's say, valid for any development that you should do. And we had also some discussions with customers and partners about this. There are quite a lot of database tables that store execution step content, and it's not that normally that obvious how this assignment, the storage works. And if you use the available interface methods that I'll show you later on, then you're really on the safe side. That if you want to delete an XStep tree, then when you call this interface methods, then all the data that belongs to this XStep tree is really removed from the database tables or marked as being deleted. So please, please, please don't directly hack in data sets in those XStep tables. And what's valid for a case, test it as much as you can. So also to get side effects. Because you're outside of the, you will probably be outside of one of those applications that implement the XStep functionality. You may run into problems that you don't foresee, that generally don't happen if you have the application context, or you work with XSteps in the application context, in the application inside, and you mostly be able to detect such problems during testing. Okay. Next step that I would like to go is to show you how this would look like for how we can create XStep content for standard routing. But please have a look at the important parts. This is a prototype, and the only thing that this prototype should do is to show you the basic steps that you have to consider when you want to create XStep objects outside of the XStep editor. It really focuses on the methods that are used and necessary. Oops. Question to the auditorium. Am I online or just got? So can you hear me or can't you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Okay, so I didn't drop off. Just sorry. Okay, great. Okay, then I will continue. I was just a little confused about a beep that I got. Okay, so we focus on the XStep part. Nevertheless, there's also the application part. So it could be that you want also to transfer master recipe data from one system to another. Here's also the bad news that SAP doesn't provide let's say a general functionality for that, even for say copying master recipes from plant to plant. But together with our folks from PPI Consulting here at SAP, we provided a possible solution for that. And so this could also be suitable for you. But it's nothing that we would roll in the standard, and as far as I know, no plan to implement such a thing in the SAP standard. Okay, so sorry. And the red sentences, as always, this is a prototype, and this prototype isn't really suited for productive usage. So you could perhaps check the coding, but please don't use it as it is in your productive system. And also, for the sake of simplicity, I didn't implement all the checks and all the hints that I gave before, so that you can just follow me through the ABAP code and get an idea about let's say the XStep part. So, and I had also discussions with our colleagues from consulting. Our consultants did similar work in the past, and also there are some discussions ongoing with several customers about let's say such mask creation and assignments yet, and it would be quite helpful if you get in touch with them. I know that there are also skilled partners outside of at the SAP universe, and they're sure that they can also help you. But our PPPI colleagues from consulting are quite aware of the challenges. So, and now I would try to go to the one of the report is the following. We have just some parameters that contain routing information, so that we would need for the creating the root context that I showed before, and also information about an operation that I would like to create as a context. And what I also want to do is I want to assign a standard XStep, and this standard XStep is characterized by its so-called item ID. This is the GUID that is stored in the corresponding database table that identifies the standard XStep. I can show you also, if we just check it, in the XStep repository. It's the one, and if you want to have check this, then you can display the object ID for this standard XStep, and this is the so-called global unique identifier. This is the one that identifies the standard XStep. This is also the information that the standard XStep reference node needs to, so it can link to the corresponding standard XStep. Okay. So one step back, and here are a couple of local variables that I need to also store buffer contents. So just we'll scroll up a little bit. First thing that we require, so don't I hope that I don't give you an overdose about ABAP programming for those that are not that familiar, so just enjoy it. First of all, you have this global class, system class, that also contains methods that allow you to create instances of a so-called factory, a library, and also manage a functionality. Here, this is a global static method of the XStep editor class. You can see this 3 characters XSE stands for the XStep editor. And also the next thing that we require, if we want to do we call several methods, this is also an instance of a utility helper class. And if you just scroll up a little bit, you see that those local objects are also referenced to existing interfaces. So also here the context object which we use later on, and also objects, local objects for the root and the XStep part. And the first step that I would like to do, I want to know the routing in which the XStep tree should be created. And here also I just take in this report, very simple, the key information of the routing. And also here I need information. I think I got this twice. Sorry, for the step context. Later on, if I want to assign operation 10, then you also can take this routing type and routing group information, because you need it anyway. And here is, let's say, something quite special about routings. If you are familiar with how routing data is stored in the database table, the operation phase data is normally stored in the so-called PLPO table. But if you want to know to which routing alternative distinct routing operation phase belongs to, then you need another information that is stored in this PLAS table. Here also the information is stored if a operation has been deleted. So it's not deleted directly in the PLPO table, but in this table, PLS, you find a deletion flag. So this is also due to the fact that routings, in opposite to manufacturing orders, are historical objects. Especially if you work with engineering change management and change numbers, you know that you can have different routing and master recipe data at different key dates. So therefore, here just I want to identify the key dates of the operation 10 on sequence 0 that I just added. And here, if you use this standard function module to get all of the to force the system or force the functionality here inside this function module to load the data from the database, it's important that you don't call this function module using the application, the routing alternative. If you do so, the returned PLPOB table, the buffer table, will be empty. So this is something you might know if you go deeper in the source coding. Otherwise, you will be a little bit surprised not to get it back. But if you do so, here all node information is that belongs to the chosen routing or recipe group. So means all nodes of the various alternatives is here loaded. Could be that if you do a mass maintenance by uploading CSV files or Excel files or access data files, that you don't have to read the data again. But remember what I said as a general recommendation: better to check if these objects all exist. If you try to, let's say, create an XStep tree for routing that does not exist, you might get the XStep tree in a database, but you won't get the assignment of the routing to the XStep tree, because the routing doesn't exist, and the linking table that binds the XStep tree to the routing can't be filled with a proper value. So this is quite also what's here then done. I used the information, let's say another important fact, the PLPO entries, they don't have any information about the sequence. And for master recipes, this is not relevant, but for routings, it's relevant if it belongs to, let's say, an alternative sequence or a parallel sequence. And here I just checked the little, let's say, part of coding to which sequence this node belongs to. So the node, the operation of the routing. So if I found it, and I just also have the sequence number that I filled into, then I got also the proper internal use node information. What I do here is that that we have, or if you want to maintain routings and master recipes, you don't see this PLNKN, this node number. You see the so-called VORNR, the operation or phase number. So it means phase number 1020. And this is something, this is the information that I can use just to find out which of the various operations that belong to different sequences should be chosen. Okay, this was quite a routing-specific coding. So now comes the more interesting part. Here, the first thing where we use an interface method is that we create the context node for the root context. Remember, this root context is the link between the application, meaning here the distinct routing, and the XStep tree. Here we have to provide a so-called application, and these are predefined constants. So we have MRC for master recipe, we have RTG for standard routings, and for production process orders we have MOR, which is the abbreviation for manufacturing orders. So this is what we add. We also have to add a category. So perhaps you remember the slides before. We could have two categories. One category is the context of a root node, and also the second category is the context of a step node. This means this could be the operation or the phase where the XStep object, the standard XStep or XStep itself, should be assigned to. And here, as the data, we have to hand over the root context, which consists of the key field information. So, and if this works properly, then we have a root context object. So this is an additional part. If you want to remove old XStep trees that have been assigned to the routing or master recipe before, you can also call this interface method, which is part of the library interface. And here you only have to add the root context. So you get for the routing on master recipe key fields all the XStep trees, or let's say the IDs of the roots that belong to the XStep tree returned. This exclusive archive means that we don't search on for XStep trees on an archive. And if there are any XStep trees maintained, then this table is filled, and then filled with IDs. And then the next thing that you can also do is to delete them. And here also standard method. You just have to transfer the global unique identifier, the XStep root node ID, as a parameter to this method, and do an update task. So start a commit work statement, and then the XStep tree is gone. Okay, so this was let's say an intermission. Next thing that we would like to do is we would like to do the same thing that you do if you press the button create an XStep tree in the XStep editor. We want to create a root node, and as you might see, we have to transfer the application. Here is the routing application, and also the root context. What we then can do is we can then also set a short text to the root object. Here just use the text symbol, but you can do anything you want. And what the next element that we would like to add is the control recipe destination, or control instruction destination. You need this to create control recipes or PI sheet later on. And here also it's important that you create the key that is necessary using the namespace. Here it's just SAP. The type, it's just PMC for process manufacturing cockpit, so that the system knows it's not an external one. Also the location, the plant in which it should be used is important, and also name of a control recipe destination that you maintained in customizing before. So if this information is complete and proper, then the next thing that you just do is to call the instance of the factory to create the destination node. And as you can see here, the factory really means it is a factory. This instance is used to create all of the XStep objects that we need. So here we got the root, here we got the destination. And the next thing is we just call a method of the root to set the destination and transfer this object. Now we have an XStep tree that consists of an XStep root node, the root context, and the destination. What I do next, I normally would not require to create an XStep node, because I would just want to assign a standard XStep to show you how you could create this XStep ice cube below the XStep tree root node. And what you also do, call the factory method for the creating the node step, and also the possibility to provide it with a short text. I'll show you later on in the routing how this looks like. The next part is important. As far as you have a tree, this means we have a hierarchy. The top node is of this XStep tree is the XStep root node, and all let's say objects that are assigned to, or that the XStep objects are siblings below. So the first thing that I do is the XStep should be a child node to the XStep tree root node, and here I just call the method that sets the XStep root node as a parent. You will see this pattern later on also. So now comes the part where I want to create the XStep reference node. And this means we have to provide some data that is also constant. We have this namespace, this is SAP in general. We have the repository, this means this is the standard delivered version repository, abbreviated as XSV. And also the global unique identifier for the standard XStep that I showed you before. I just here put in a hard-coded value. Then the utility method that, the utility instance that we created before comes into play. And here we can also return some data about the standard XStep that we maintain in the repository. So here we've got here something called the ls node info. And what I want to use, I just want to use the short text of the standard XStep and assign it as a short text to the SXS reference node. And also something that you might be familiar with, here's a pattern. You create this standard XStep reference node by calling the corresponding factory method and handing over the structure field with the necessary data for the standard XStep reference node. So something that is also necessary if I want to assign my standard XStep reference node to operation 10, then I have to provide also a so-called node context. What I do here, I create the values for this structure, context structure. So routing type is quite known. We also know the routing group. And because we executed the application logic before, we also know the node, the internal use node information. These are the key fields for the PLTO part. And also the next step is obvious. I use my factory instance to create the context. Also application is the same. The category differs from the category of the root node. If you remember it, a couple of lines above, here we have the constant. It's a step 1 because we want to assign this or create a context for an XStep or a standard XStep, and also the data information must be in shape of a step context. Next thing, as far as we have this application, we have the application created, we have an object instance of a standard XStep reference node, then we assign the standard XStep as a children below the XStep node that I created before. Of course, we could skip the creation of the XStep node and directly assign it to the XStep root node and set here, instead of LO XStep, LO XSroot as a parent. So next things are, as I said, logic that's not that obvious. Here, if we do changes on XSteps, it is necessary that we do these changes using so-called change objects. It's not equal to, let's say, an engineering change order or engineering change number. It's just an internally used object that collects all the changes and then also is handed over to, let's say, it got a method that allows to persist. This means to prepare storing this information on the database. Few words about normally, if you create an XStep object, the XStep object is in the mode of being transient. This means if it is not persisted with the help of this change object, you close the XStep editor and open it again, this object is gone. And so nothing is stored in the database. And here it is necessary to call this method. which is also important. There are some factory methods to allow also creating change objects, also by handing over change numbers. So this is also for the historical ones. This is also supported in this report. I just want to create or use create a change object that is valid from today. So I have not to hand over anything. So I also can create a date in the future. But here for my report, the default is the current date. Okay, what you see also here, it's quite not that nice to have this right statements, but if any exception occurs, here it's caught. I just also provide a local variable to check if an error occurred, and then I here just output a statement that an error occurred and then return. So I do not execute anything. So the next part is the part where you just carve your changes into stone. So we have a quite quick and dirty commit statement inside this report here. And what I also do afterwards, after execution of the update of the database tables, I will just like to check if the trees there are really, in my case, I create one tree, there exists no tree before, if it really happened, and I just check in a very easy way if I got an XStep tree or if I don't got one. So now you might be a little bit curious to see how it works. So we'll just check if I left the routing, because here I don't want to get into conflicts. So, and then I will just remove here a test flag. You can see here I got the plant, the task list type, the group counter, the sequence, which is 0, the operation number I would like to assign my standard XStep, and also a name of the control recipe destination, control instruction destination, and the item. Normally you won't add this here in the way that I did. You would normally I would expect that you identify those standard XSteps, and as well as the content. So it means operation information, and help this data in your, let's say, files, CSV files or Excel files that you would like to upload and process to create the stuff. So just execute it. So my success message, so it seems to look good. And now we can hopefully see the changes. So call my standard routing. Okay. Could be that the system is quite slow. So let's close this one. So here was quite a good example. That's where we have a logging, and here the logging of the XStep tables was done by the report. So hopefully we don't got any miss. No, something got wrong. Try to execute it again and just wait. So we'll check if we have any database logs here in the... Oh, sorry. This was the wrong one. So... here they are. Okay. What we did create, the XStep tree root node, we created the destination, that I added. Sorry, that's not the destination. It's the root context. This is the control instruction destination that I assigned to UD. This is the XStep node that I generated, and here also the predefined shorttext that I assigned. And here also we see the standard XStep reference node. And if everything was properly done, then it points to here this standard XStep. We'd like to have the input of the signature data, and so this was done using the report. What was quite good is that you saw that depending also on the system, here is quite one of our old slow testing systems, that it could be that you have these logging conflicts. So as far as I go into we'll call the XStep editor, the system then tries for a distinct routing. The system then tries to load the XSteps, and here we got the information that the XStep data can't be loaded. So you perhaps remember the error message that the system says, okay, can't log that stuff, and so things really then went good as far as the update task was properly executed. So this was a quite deep dive into XStep coding. So if you would like to, or if you have some questions, then I will be able, hopefully, to give you some answers. So just stop sharing.
Hi, Uwe. You didn't show that there is a context to a phase there, though. But I think you could have collapsed the standard XStep, and there would have been the context of the phase, right?
Oh, okay. Perhaps this I show again. You can see this. Yeah. Sorry. Of course. So this is one thing that Arne mentioned. Just going a little down. This is the operation context node that I created with the help of the information that I imported into, so that I used as a select option, a parameter for the set report that I executed.
Okay, and could you also set parameter values on that XStep or that report, or would that be too much?
Yeah, so I did search for the methods. This could be that this might be a limitation. It could be that it's achievable, but I didn't try this out.
Okay.
So there's one thing just to call. This is the function module that we in standard provide as a template if you want to create this rework function module. This rework XStep tree that we also showed in one of the demos of the XStep of the XStep Café. And what let's say is described also in detail is to load the buffer tables. And for the manufacturing orders, therefore I also concentrated in this demo on the routing part. But in general, it's quite it's straightforward. What we do have here in addition is that this rework function module also has logic. Just scroll down in here, which we don't have available in the master recipes or routings. And we just wanted also to directly create a control recipe and send it to the control recipe destination, so that we have a rework PI sheet immediately. And this is done by this coding part. But this coding part will not work for master recipes and routings, because here the functionalities to create control recipes or let's say generate PI sheets directly out of the master recipes are not implemented and are therefore disabled. So, okay. So perhaps you also hope that you got an idea which elements you require for creating such objects. But I hope that you also get an impression why we don't deliver something in SAP standard because of the, let's say, the possible conflicts that you do have if let's say, for instance, somebody is maintaining the routing or then goes into the XStep editor and you're trying to create your data with help of a mass creation report, then this gets into conflicts. Yeah. But in this case, what I did not implement in my report is that you try to get an information if the XStep tree root table, the database table is already logged, as you normally would do if you want to create a new object, try to change an object, try to check if somebody else is working on this database table for the information that for the distinct XStep tree that you want to create. And if it's not the case, then you can go on with creating the data. Yes?
Eric here in the chat is
Yeah.
asking for a more general description and complete example with prerequisites. I know that this was quite a technical session, but maybe I don't know. Maybe that's also leads to the question where people can get this coding. Do you intend to publish it as a note or something, or?
Yeah, this is quite a question where I don't have the final answer to it. What won't happen is that I would or that we would provide also in cooperation with our colleagues here at SAP, we want to provide a note for this. Yeah, because you see there could be side effects, and you also have really, if you want to provide such a feature in SAP standard, you have to think about more options, or let's say to make it bulletproof or more bulletproof than a consulting solution could be. Perhaps I will go to blog more of the details, or provide a general document on the SAP community network to share it. My hope was that the session, if you perhaps do a replay of the session, that the information that is transferred in this session is sufficient enough for, let's say, getting a first good idea.
Yeah, maybe somebody needs to at least have a colleague with some ABAP know-how together with him, so that he can really take something out of it. Yes? I don't hear you very well. Can you speak up or come closer to the microphone?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a quick question. Like, do you have any place where we can find who discarded or who canceled the PA sheet?
Should be in the log, I think. So if you enable in the control recipe destination the logging, I think you should see it in the log, Uwe.
Oh.
Correct?
I need to check it, but I. Okay.
You know which log I mean? So the log of the PI sheet, the PI sheet log.
Okay, so control recipe log, right?
No, in the customizing of the control recipe, you can specify how much is logged for PI sheet. You can log any entry, or you can just log things like discarding things.
Okay, that is not available in standard ones, right?
Who is just showing it to you? Hold on.
Okay.
opciones.
Yeah. So you have to check it out. So maybe set here all with log to log, and then see what's in the log of the PI sheet. Maybe Uwe, if you open up a PI sheet which you have there, so that you can show where the log is found. While you do that, maybe one remark to participants who joined just recently. Maybe you mix up the starting time. In my blog on the right side, there's a link which says check with your time zone. So you should really check before you plan to attend at which local time this meeting is really, just to avoid that you just join the meeting when it's just about to end. Yeah, this is the log. No, that's the loading log. Ooh, there must be some other place where the log is being shown. Where was that?
I am trying to find it. I don't think there's any standard messages that carries or standard.
I really thought that the log is accessible in the PI sheet itself, but it's been some time since I've been to a PI sheet, so I'm not sure.
Display log. Okay, 1 second.
It's not the button just that Uwe just clicked on the top there. I think.
In the next to the cockpit,
maybe
there is
Uwe with the context menu. I think you should see some log. I think that's when you go to any element there. So you should be able. Okay, context menu display. It's not enabled here, maybe. But here you should, if it's enabled for the control recipe, I think here you should see something like display log.
Is there in the cockpit next to the top, the cockpit next to cockpit there is an edit? There is a log and edit. Right, in the top.
Está a punto de alcanzar la longitud máxima permitida para una grabación. Finalice la grabación después del tono.
It's not this. It's just a technical log. And
That's not.
These are not the logs you're looking for. I think it's in the context menu, but maybe not in this PI sheet that Uwe just showed.
Ha alcanzado la duración máxima permitida para una grabación. Para enviar este mensaje, pulse 1. Para reproducir el mensaje, pulse 3. Para volver a grabarlo, pulse 4. Para ampliarlo, pulse 5. Para cancelar, pulse 6. Para enviar este mensaje, pulse 1. Para reproducir el mensaje, pulse 3. Para volver a grabarlo, pulse 4. Para ampliarlo, pulse 5. Para cancelar, pulse 6. El mensaje ha sido enviado. Si desea comunicarse con una extensión, puede hacerlo ahora. Hasta luego.
Yeah, I think we cannot answer it right now.
Okay.
So, but that should be so. Make sure that the log is enabled for in the control recipe customizing. do something and enter some values, some locking, deactivation, and then make a right click on that element on the PI sheet. I think you should see something which show log.
Okay, that's available in standard ones, right? I will try
yeah, it should
something.
be available
Yeah.
in standard.
Okay. Okay, if you get some information, can you put it on the forum? I will look at it later.
Okay. Maybe also just for all of you, I have a forum in the blog, yes, but I have also added Google Plus community. It's also accessible in my blog. You see the Google logo there. Maybe that is a more appropriate way to do this community stuff. Forum like just use it there.
Okay, thanks, Arne.
You're welcome. Right, so we are well over the time, so I'd like to close this up now.
And one more request, Arne, can you make it just every month once instead of 2 months? You got to wait for a long time. If you have anything,
the thing
and sometimes
is,
you forget after 2 months a particular day.
I don't know, Uwe, what is your take on this? Do you want to do it more often? But because I have a lot to do and with other stuff now.
Yeah, so I'm all quite busy, and so we had, let's say, also a period or phase where we had really some lack of topics, and as you might have seen, also not that deep into the details. So for the next session, so it would be quite before Christmas, I suppose.
4th of December.
Yeah. Then we can talk about logging, but we would also be quite helpful if we have topics that we can answer that are not that consultant relevant. Then we might also include them in the next sessions.
Sorry about that. So maybe if you try the community in the meantime. Okay. Right. If there are no urgent questions, I suggest we make it for today. Finish up for today. Okay. Stop the recording and say goodbye to you, and till in 2 months. See you then. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for your time. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.